All right, guys, so I made it to the Torqeedo booth. Y'all know this knucklehead. So, Jeff, I want to be able to talk about Torqeedo, and a lot of fans have asked me about the Sholey. Right. And lo and behold, you have a Sholey completely rigged out in your booth with a Torqeedo on it. So we're going to kill two birds with one stone, and you're probably going to kill some other birds just because I know you. But I'm going to turn it over to you. Give us a walkthrough of the new Crescent Kayak Sholey and talk about how you integrated your Torqeedo 1103 into that platform.
Sure. First, we have to talk about secondary stability. I think kayak fishing has gone so far in the direction of I only want the boat that looks crazy, amazingly stable, that I'll never flip it. Get some paddling skills, learn how to lean on an edge. You know, there's so many advantages that you have with using this thing, having this in your lap and being able to paddle aggressively, and where you need to lean on that boat, which shortens the length of wetted surface, and you can turn this around. The Sholey is an awesome riverboat because it's agility, it's maneuverability with the paddle. Sure, the Torqeedo makes it super maneuverable as well, but first and foremost, this is a whitewater paddler's fishing kayak. It's awesome, super maneuverable. Not the fastest with the Torqeedo. Gets about 6.2, which is in the lower half of the speeds that you can get with the 1103. But
it's designed for the river.
Yes,
right?
yes, it is a great river boat.
All right, so let's do the walk through the boat, and we'll finish up back there with the Torqeedo. But
that works.
Yeah. So
I can tell everyone's been playing with the bow handle front drag strap. Helps you get into those creative access points, to be able to drag this through. It's one of the first things I did when I went down and filmed with this boat with Scott Butcher is I dragged over, like, I didn't have to. We had an easy access. There's actually a ramp there, and I'm like, no, I just have to grab this boat and like drag it through the woods to get that out of my system. Being able to, to have this ready to drag and get into those creative access points is just smart. So I'm gonna move. This is my little shorty park and pole.
The little stick.
It is the little stick. Man, you got to go way back to find that video. How far can you dig into the little stuff to find the little stick? Anyhow, we're we have the front hatch. I've actually put rods in these. Scott gave me the third one to be able to put, and it's apparently only good for bait casters, but I put rods in there to have the rod storage there. I think that's helpful in your creative access point, like dragging places, to be able to have protected rods there. I've put gear track in certain places. I actually have, this is the bomb anchor on the front. I put a little pulley there, and I anchor. It's important when you anchor to have this line close to where you're seated, so that if you have to, you get that, and I carry the NRS co-pilot on me to be able to say, nope, I'm in danger, pop that, I can buy another anchor, I only got one life. So having that access close to you is important.
So one of the things that I'll recommend, because it's a safety thing, is I've actually gotten away from the PFD knife as my only knife. I actually have a knife on the bottom of the seat right here. That's the old J-hook style. That's the parachute cutting line from my military days. So I'm going to talk about that in another video, but I'll send you one of them because it's a great secondary thing to, you reach, you grab the bottom of your hip, you pull it out, and you cut your line. So yeah. People keep asking about the quick release anchor system. There isn't a practical quick release because they say when it gets sketchy. But if it's sketchy, if you have a quick release, you're probably going to make it more problematic. So cutting the line is the quick release.
One of the 2 times in my life where I've said it's been a good run, today's the day. This is it. These are my last moments. Was related to an anchor, and someone saved my life. My fraternity brother, Kurt Long, saw me in current, and I'm gonna use this as my kayak. I was stupidly, and this was like back in 1990 something, anchored off the back, and I'm in there in a creek boat, a skirted boat, and it starts, I'm tethered to the bottom of the Potomac River, and it starts whipping back and forth, and I'm in it trying to rudder and keep from being flipped over. He comes in sideways, T-bones me, and cuts the line and saves my life. So be able to save your own life, and it sounds like Chad's got a good product to cut that. The J-hook, that intrigues me.
It's the same thing we wear in our survival harnesses in the military to cut parachute cord.
Right.
So I'll post a link in the video,
Awesome.
in an upcoming video.
So I've put some gear track here to be able to put, well, I did this one to have my parking pole, but you know, camera mount. I don't actually have the depth finder on this one yet. I haven't gotten that far. It's sort of a secondary thought for a riverboat to have, and I do use them more for temperature, but that's a whole other discussion. I just don't have a depth finder on here yet. When I do, I already got the base to put that on. This steering kit is the Innovative Sportsman Foot Control Steering Kit. It includes the 90-degree adapters from Yak Attack, ties into to the existing track, and you know, I got some other lock and load bases and other parts there. But
So since you modified that, what comes stock on the Sholey before that's there? Is it just a foot pedal, a foot brace?
yeah, it's actually this part. I've taken off
Okay.
the foot peg totally.
On the stock version, this track will be down here.
Yeah, but it doesn't have the the track. It's just
Just the foot
this part
brace,
is-
yeah,
is
yeah.
hard fixed there.
Yep. Cool.
So-
I just wanted to point that out for folks.
Yep. You know, moving back, I used a flush mount, throttle mount from Innovative Sportsman. I got my kayak cushion on there.
Obviously, one of the big questions about this, and Drew and I talked about it on the podcast, but the integrated measuring board.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see that that's happening. I couldn't say anything on the podcast, even though I knew it was also being developed into another boat, and then
Right.
that's now been released. But this is something like guys like you and me and other anglers have been asking for years. It actually allows you to have a little water down there too to keep the board wet, and so that's a really good move by the folks from Crescent.
Absolutely. I like the 13 by 13. I did fit the larger, the biggest one in there. It does fit. I had to actually take off. I have these tether tubes. I had them set up the same way. This is a 13 by 13, but this 16 by 16 does fit in the Sholey.
I like the way that 13 by 13 looks in
I'm
there, though.
happier
That's
with
pretty
this,
clean.
with this smaller one.
Sweet. Still got some room back here for a Torqeedo battery.
Yeah, I don't have it in here because
Yeah.
I took it back to the room to charge last
Yeah.
night.
And then,
here's the here's the part that really just needed to happen to make Crescent kayaks riggable. Obviously, you have the 4-bolt pattern, but to be able to reach up inside here to put backing hardware on there was critical. We have the kiss-offs for the tubing, and I have the whole installation video of the Torqeedo on my YouTube channel. I think that the thumbnail says Susky Sholey, and it shows this boat like getting it with weight coming off it, and you know, it's gotten good reach. But no, it's step by step, and I actually did this install with Trey Leach at Innovative Sportsman in his shop. So
now, Jeff, obviously you're the Torqeedo guy. You've got the Torqeedo installed. How much experience did you get in this boat without it? Did you paddle it at all, or did you rig it with the motor first?
I spent a weekend down there with Scott Butcher in Carrollton, Georgia, really showing off the secondary stability and just fishing it and paddling it. The first thing I did is sprint with this, and it has good initial acceleration. And then I did a bunch of things where I practiced my brace, and I flipped it intentionally to see where that point of no return is. I know that once the water gets to here, it's about to go. Like visually, I know that this rail is my demarcation of that's as far as you want to go.
Yeah, brace up, press up, get low.
Most people are getting really scared when it's like that. When it's at the rail, it's like that.
All right, so I was
And
gonna.
once you've been there,
Yeah.
you can do so much more.
Right,
You can
so
get crazy.
I got to stop
and
you
do
for
things.
just a second because you
Which is
talked
so
about
cool.
initial stability.
Yes.
but you presuppose that people know the difference between initial stability and secondary stability. So I want you to explain why, when you first sit down in this boat, the average angler who has kayak fishing experience is going to say it feels tippy. And the reason for that is
so conditioned to boats with like overkill primary stability. Perfect example, that inflatable over there. I've tried flipping it. I actually had to pull it over with myself to flip it.
Or that Jackson Nar, or insert the Bonafide SS127, the Old Town, every brand, every model, every brand. We've gotten super stable.
So it really comes back to, I'd say, kayak fishing, you know, the roots of kayak fishing, that we're in wreck boats that have efficient hulls that just move, that paddle well, and they slice through the water. And this one in particular, like I said, you can edge it, and basically when you're sitting upright in the boat, and here's the hull, when you start to lean on it, the length of the boat, length of the wet surface might be this long, and you're nice and sleek and fast and moving in one direction. But when you lean on it, it shortens the length of wetted surface, and you're on its side, and it turns easier. You can only do that with a boat that you trust. When you lean that hard, it's going to go so far, and then it's going to want to stop you right before it goes.
But let's back up and talk about the fact that you have limited initial stability means you have less boat in the water, meaning there's boat coming up out of the water on both sides, lower wetted surface, lower coefficient of friction. But the primary purpose for it in a river boat like this boat is it loosens the boat up, and it allows it to have that maneuverability, which is what you need to do to be able to hit those eddies and V's and pockets and have that maneuverability going down the road. So Jeff, any final thoughts on the Sholey with the 1103? Anything else you want to point out? And if so,
specific to the 1103,
not just the Sholey in general. It doesn't have to.
Sholey in general. I hope it's a beginning of a trend swinging back towards paddleable. I'm not saying that right. Boats you can paddle. Boats that you can lean on an edge. Boats that you can do whitewater stuff and not be hampered by crazy width and really inefficient slow propulsion forward. That you have to have a motor, have to have a pedal drive to get back to the paddling of it. Because those boats that do paddle well do really good with a motor. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. All right. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it, man. All right, guys. So after I left Jeff, I made it over to the Anchor Wizard booth, and Cameron also had a Sholey in the booth, but he didn't have as much crap on his boat as Jeff did. So I'm actually able to turn it over. And one of the questions that folks always ask in these videos is, man, I really wish you would have shown the hole. And so here is a look at the bottom, and that bulbous nose is what's going to make that thing loose in the river. And as you can see, you've got a rise in the center, and it drops off on the side. That's what's going to give you that low initial stability, but the more you lean, the more stable it's going to get. And so when you have that hole like that, it's going to make it where it's really loose and maneuverable in the river, and it gives you the ability to, again, make those maneuvers that you need to make it through whitewater runs and things like that. But he's also got enough of a keel back here that it's not going to spin on you, okay? They've also done a really good job of hiding the scuppers down in these grooves. And the reason that's a big deal is when you've got the leading edge of scuppers right here, flush with the hull in a river, that's the first thing that rocks hit. That's the first place that a leak is going to develop. So I think that these guys did a really good job of recessing those scuppers. Scuppers are for draining, but they're also for structural strength. A lot of times when you see boats that are flexing a lot, when anglers are stepping on it, it's because they didn't put enough scuppers in that boat, or they didn't reinforce it with foam. He did a good job of putting the transducer recessed in there. But here's something I also want to point out. When you make your scuppers have that trailing edge opening like that, that's designed for moving water. So if you take water over into the top of the boat, that angled, tapered design helps vacate that water a lot faster. So probably more important than the deck on a really you know, specific design for the rivers is how they design the hull. And obviously Drew knows the rivers. Crescent knows wreck, paddling, and moving water. So I think these guys did a killer job on this hull design.